utter incompetence. The Caroline murder trial hears of years of police bungling. In the end, it was an American customs agent who tracked her attacker down. Tonight, we've an exclusive interview with him.
Also tonight, ballot botch. Police called in to investigate postal vote fiasco. Saying goodbye, Reagan's body has flown to Washington for a grand farewell. And Move Over Tim, introducing Britain's extraordinary new tennis star.
Just enjoy the moment, to be honest. It's not very often that you're in the last 16 at Queen's.
Good evening. The series of blunders by French police that could have stopped Caroline Dickinson's murder was laid bare in a French court today. A French policeman described how Francisco Montes, charged with killing Caroline, slipped through their fingers 2 years before he attacked her. He also gave details of breakdowns in their investigation that meant Montes wasn't arrested until this man, American immigration officer Tomienko, made the connection between the wanted man he read about in a British newspaper and a man being held in Florida. Well, we'll be talking to Mr. Onko in a moment, but first, let's go to Brittany, where Helen Callaghan has again been in court today. Helen.
Well, today French police took to the stand, but it was the murder inquiry itself that was in the dock. We now know that Montes was arrested both here and in Spain in connection with a series of sex attacks both before and after Caroline's death. Now, that information was never shared between the countries because of a catalogue of police mistakes. Showing a family's frustration, today the Dickinsons heard how Montes should never have been free to attack Caroline. Time after time, country after country, he evaded capture and the authorities let him slip through their fingers. One of the investigators told the court here in Rennes that at one stage the communications between Spanish and French authorities had completely broken down. In 1997, the Spanish arrested and bailed Montes in connection with a sexual assault. Yet when the French phoned the Spanish a year later to find out where he was, the Spanish claimed not to know him. So, just as he'd attacked Caroline, he was able to continue to prey on young girls right under their friends' noses. In a statement in court, one of Caroline's classmates who was asleep next to her on that night said, "I was woken up by noises as if somebody was banging something. I saw Caroline moving. She was shaking her legs. I thought she was dreaming or having a nightmare. I also heard a sort of groaning in the room," which the girl assumed was one of their friends in the dormitory who talked in her sleep. A forensic scientist from the French police explained that there probably wouldn't have been much of a struggle. Thierry Lizeau said he was convinced the attack was brutal but swift and that Caroline was dead before Montes left the room. And that's what the prosecution have to prove, that by holding cotton wool over Caroline's nose and mouth, Montes knew he was killing her. Helen Callaghan, ITV News, Rennes.
As we've heard, the level of police incompetence in this case is little short of staggering. Montes was able to carry out depraved crimes, many in youth hostels, all across Europe for years without being caught. In 1989, he was convicted of rape and attempted rape in Germany, but he only served part of his sentence, and in the 90s lived in London, travelling back to France, where it's alleged he tried to abduct an Irish schoolgirl. He attacked Caroline in 1996. The police bungled the investigation and he was free to continue his rampage. The following year, he was arrested in Spain for attempted rape. Against his own family's wishes, he was given bail and he fled to America, where the attacks continued. The net only finally closed in on him there, and then only by an extraordinary set of coincidences. Montes was being held for a minor sex offence. An American immigration officer happened to have read about him in a British newspaper. He did some research, and it was only then that Montes was linked to Caroline's attack and extradited.
Well, that American immigration official is Tomienko, and he joins us live now from Detroit. Tommy, this is an extraordinary story. There you are, 4,000 miles from the scene of the crime, nothing to do with the case, and you make the crucial link. How did you do it exactly?
In regards to how we made the link, I really can't comment on the investigation part of the case. That was an investigation part. We used resources to try and determine whether or not a person had entered the United States. But as to the specific things that we did, I can't comment on that. I apologize.
Okay, well that's fine. But what was it about the case that made you pursue it like this, Tommy?
Well, what happened was 5 years prior to reading this original article, I saw the first article in the paper reporting on the death of Caroline in France. 5 years later, there was a newspaper that was published, the Sunday Times, and there was an article written in it that related this story. This was the anniversary edition for the death of Caroline, and the killer still had not been found. There was one big difference in this case, though. This time they gave the name and approximate age of a suspect. With that, and reading that, and seeing that the family had really pushed to keep this before the public and before the police, to keep the case ongoing, and with my duties as an officer to protect the borders, it was my job to run the name and to check whether or not a person may have entered the United States, and might he, if he did, might he be endangering the American public.
Okay, well what are your feelings now that the man you helped track down is facing justice? You must be very pleased.
Well, right now the case is ongoing. I'm sure the French justice will take its course, and I do look forward to the end of the trial to see if all the pieces were accurately put together as far as the overall puzzle of the case.
Just finally, Tommy, sorry to interrupt
Yes,
you.
sir.
Just finally, does it worry you that if you hadn't acted, he may still be free?
Oh, certainly. That was one of the first things when we found out that an entry had been made. The first thing was that the American public was at risk, and if so, was he still in the United States? That was foremost.
Okay,
And then
Tommy
the
Onko.
duty came to trying to track him down.
Okay, Tommy Onko, thanks very much indeed for joining us from Detroit. Thank you.
It was supposed to be the big idea to get Britain voting again. Instead, the great postal voting experiment, involving 14 million people, could be facing catastrophe tonight.
There's an investigation into fraud in Greater Manchester and the possibility of legal challenges by losing candidates. Our political correspondent, Angus Walker, reports on what's in danger of becoming a ballot botch.
He was warned of the danger of fraud. He was told it could turn democracy into disaster. But John Prescott believes his judgment was right. But has postal voting in fact gone wrong amid countless claims of fraud? Community leaders in the Manchester area today spoke out about the numerous allegations of bribery and stolen ballot papers. In some cases, families being intimidated into handing over their votes.
The people going there say, all right, we'll come here, we'll help you to fill the forms up and so that you can wait. This happened.
And Lancashire police are investigating a suspicious number of applications for proxy votes.
60 people are I think, a representative sample of people from the amount of temporary proxy votes we've received, and we'll be speaking to those individuals to see if any criminal offences have been committed.
Claims of crime can only lead to one thing: legal challenges. Remember the hanging chads of Florida? The holes meant to be punched in US election ballot papers were argued over long after the polls closed.
It will be the lawyers arguing in court for several weeks or months about particular outcomes of particular alleged discrepancies in particular places.
And the ballot papers themselves have been causing confusion. Many have been delivered late or not at all and have been baffling voters. Today, John Prescott, standing in for Tony Blair at Prime Minister's Questions, was accused of causing election campaign chaos.
Today we see allegations that substantial numbers of voters have been intimidated, and indeed that in one case, an employer told his staff that he would sack them all if they refused to support Labour.
Let us celebrate and let us be right that 1 million more people are going to participate, have already participated in these elections.
As soon as the ballot papers are being counted, a review of this chaotic campaign will begin. The result of that will be seen as the verdict on John Prescott's extensive experiment in postal voting. Angus Walker, ITV News, Westminster.
Well, let's join our political editor Nick Robinson now. Nick, we heard Charles Kennedy there saying he was concerned we'd see another Florida-type situation. Do you think we are in danger of seeing the legal wrangles going on for weeks?
Well, quite simply, if any party believes an election is very close, if they believe that the way the election was run could have made the difference, if they believe that there was malpractice, then sure, of course they'll try and take it to the courts. Judges don't like overturning elections. That won't stop angry, frustrated political parties trying.
There were warnings. Why do you think they were ignored?
One word: turnout. John Prescott says for the sake of democracy, more of us should vote. He believes postal voting would do that. His critics, though, say he ignored warnings by the Electoral Commission, for example, the watchdog of this whole process, to only pilot this in a couple of areas rather than in 4. Most of the north of England, for example. Why did he do it? They claim he did it because he wanted higher turnout for the Labour Party. The truth is all the parties are in favour of postal voting. They all think there should be a higher turnout, but critical is the secrecy of the ballot. In 1872, behind me there in Parliament, they voted to give us the right to cast our vote in secret. If that's being frustrated, they're going to have to change this whole process.
Nick Robinson, thank you.
Now, at last, it seems the technology that has allowed paedophiles to meet children on the internet may now be turned against them.
Police in Britain, the United States and Australia say they're now able to monitor chat rooms 24 hours a day and send out warning messages to anyone caught grooming children online. Our crime correspondent Dan Rivers reports on the new web warnings.
Internet chat rooms have flourished in the last decade. Most are totally innocent, but occasionally paedophiles are using them to groom children. But with millions of computers chatting around the clock, detecting unsuitable conversations has been like looking for a virtual needle in a cyber haystack. So today the police are deploying some new tactics, a kind of high-visibility cyber Bobby on the beat, patrolling the world's chat rooms. Here's how it'll work. The police will flash up a unique symbol when they're passing through a chat room. It's hoped very soon the word on the virtual street will spread that if chat room conversations involving children become inappropriate, like arranging a meeting, the beat officer will intervene, hopefully deterring paedophiles from using the internet. But at present, as the police go off shift around the world, chat rooms in that country aren't being monitored into the night. So what's proposed is a global alliance with officers stationed in different time zones, ensuring there's a spotlight on chat rooms 24 hours a day. Well, that's the theory put forward today by a group of international police officers, but will it really work?
How on earth can you possibly be in every chat room in the internet, because it's so vast, there are so many websites, how can you be everywhere at once?
Well, the world is a vast place, and you don't expect police officers to be on every street corner in every street in every city around the world. This is actually about a presence that comes in, that you can engage with, you're aware that it's there, and then we'll move on.
Children's charities say anything which makes the internet safer is worth trying.
Any one child that we can save and any one person we can stop developing a sexual interest in children has to be a good thing. Now, how that works out statistically over time, I guess only time will tell.
The police have already seized hundreds of computers and raided homes across the world as part of Operation OAR, but that's only stopped a fraction of the world's paedophiles. Many more will now be targeted by patrols in cyberspace. Dan Rivers, ITV News.
Still to come on the evening news, Ian Hu, meet Britain's most unlikely tennis sensation.
And hanging out the flags, how the English are showing their true colours.
But first, from his home state, California, back to the centre of power in Washington. The body of President Reagan is crossing the United States as I speak. His lying in state will continue under that great dome of Washington's Capitol building, and it's from there that Robert Moore joins us this evening. Robert.
Mark, Ronald Reagan's body will arrive in Washington in just over 3 hours' time before lying in state here on Capitol Hill, allowing tens of thousands of Americans to pay their respects. For the funeral service on Friday, Baroness Thatcher will be here, the Prince of Wales, and Tony Blair. It'll be quite a send-off, just as Reagan wanted, as America says farewell. In the last 48 hours, 100,000 Californians have paid their respects, filing day and night past the closed casket of their 40th president. Nancy Reagan, in a gesture that has come to symbolize America's sense of loss, had already paid her own silent tribute. And now the full pomp and ceremony that accompanies a presidential funeral is just beginning. The White House has provided a presidential aircraft for the journey from the West Coast to the Atlantic for the memorial services in the nation's capital. In Washington, rehearsals are already well underway. This will be the biggest state event for over 40 years, and in many ways will mirror the last great presidential funeral, that of John F. Kennedy in 1963. A riderless horse will feature again, so too a procession down Constitution Avenue. In a tradition that dates back to Abraham Lincoln, Reagan's body will lie in state underneath the dome of Capitol Hill, before the funeral service itself on Friday morning. The plane carrying the former president's body is now taken to the skies. Ronald Reagan was always controversial in life, but in death he is being remembered here as the man whose optimism and character helped to re-energize the country. Well, his final journey will be on Friday when his body is flown back to California. The burial service will be beside his presidential library, and everything has been meticulously timed. That service will be timed to the setting of the sun over the Pacific Ocean.
Okay, Robert Moore, thank you.
To another president now, and George Bush, together with Tony Blair, has been letting out a mighty sigh of relief today.
Messrs Bush and Blair, meeting at the World Leaders Summit in Georgia, have managed to unite the world over a new plan for Iraq, but it's not all plain sailing.
Our senior political correspondent John Ray is at the summit. John.
Katie, if last night was all about relief, even revelling in that UN resolution, today a new dawn and harsh reality broke here in the summit. In Iraq, it's all now down to the difficult detail of building and enforcing the peace. For once, the heat they're feeling is not the diplomatic heat from Iraq, just the heat of America's deep south. Unanimity at the UN makes for relaxed leaders, perhaps too relaxed, President Bush even joking at his own expense.
So far I'm doing a lousy job.
I'm doing a lousy job, he quipped, but the job they can't afford to foul up is to translate newfound political resolve into real progress.
When we say transfer full sovereignty, we mean transfer full sovereignty.
The security challenge we face obviously has to be dealt with by security measures, but it's not just about security measures. It's not just about force. It's also about political and democratic reform.
But security in Iraq, as it is here, remains the primary concern. There's talk now of NATO extending a helping hand, though the French and the Germans too will not readily send troops. So America will remain the main protector of this man, the new Iraqi president, Ghazi al-Yawa, in a deeply symbolic moment welcomed as a guest here tonight. President Bush says his war in Iraq will ultimately make the world a safer place, but with 10,000 troops and police protecting this summit, to the rest of the world, it might not look that way. Now, developing news here tonight, there is hope at the summit that success in Iraq might breathe new impetus into that most intractable of problems, the Israel-Palestinian conflict that's been going on now for years. We are expecting a communique issued shortly on behalf of the whole G8, a determination to get back to the so-called roadmap for peace. Now, that's the roadmap that many critics say that President Bush and Tony Blair effectively ripped up not that many weeks ago by recognizing Jewish settlements on the West Bank in Israel. Now, we are being told that the progress will be significant if modest, and of course the usual word of warning, as in Iraq, all these things are much easier said than actually delivered.
Okay, John, thank you.
Now, it was no fluke. Yesterday, Ian Flanagan was an unknown tennis player from Wales until he beat a top seed at the Stella Artois tournament. Well, today, he beat another one.
He's fast becoming the new Tim Henman, which is just as well. The old one got knocked out today in the first round. Romilly Weeks reports on Flanagan's rise from zero to hero.
From nowhere to Britain's new great tennis hope,
Ian Flanagan went into the tournament ranked 866th in the world. And before this week, his earnings had only totalled around £3,500. But today, he continued his giant killing. Such confidence. Shots like this helping him beat Victor Hanescu in straight sets and propelling him into the third round.
It's not very often that you're in the last 16 at Queen's at 866 in the world, so I'll just go out and have some fun and try and enjoy the match and enjoy the moment.
Flanagan had already caused one of the biggest upsets in the tournament's history, beating last year's Wimbledon finalist Mark Philippoussis yesterday. Having never won a top-ranked match before, he's now the talk of the tournament.
I didn't know him before, and quite a big, new, maybe English star.
Good on him, to be honest. Can you only be positive for Britannia?
It's lovely to have somebody else to cheer for, yes. Ian Flanagan's victories have made him the new British hero here at Queen's. If he can repeat the feat against Sebastian Grosjean, who he'll play tomorrow, there'll certainly be some talking of him as the next Tim Henman. As for Henman himself, he didn't have such a good day.
He's got it.
That mistake cost him the match against Slovakia's Karel Beck. Britain's number one is out, but there's a new contender waiting to step into his shoes. Romilly Weeks, ITV News at Queen's Club.
Poor old Tim. A reminder now of tonight's top national and regional news. A court in France today heard how a series of police blunders let Caroline Dickinson's alleged killer slip through their fingers.
The government's postal voting experiment for tomorrow's elections faces catastrophe after police announced a fraud investigation in Greater Manchester.
And police have found a way to monitor internet chat rooms to track paedophiles trying to groom potential victims.
And the top stories in the Midlands tonight. A safety review is underway after a teenager drowned at a fishing pool near Wolverhampton. 16-year-old Jason Mansell had been trying to rescue his friend. And Staffordshire Navy veteran Tom Clay has had his precious wartime photos returned, thanks to Central News.
And finally, once they were a national embarrassment associated with fascism, now they're almost everywhere. The demand for England flags for Euro 2004 is so great that makers can't keep up with demand.
ITV News reckons that around 5 million are now fluttering from cars and buildings as football fans reclaim the Red Cross of St George. Chris Choi reports on the rebirth of a symbol of English pride.
They're on homes, in cars, on businesses, even adorning individuals. Our research suggests 5 million have been sold. Fleetwood is certainly fluttering, one example of how flag fever's gripping England. It starts with soccer, but is this a move towards reclaiming a neglected national symbol?
In many ways we've had political changes in such as like Wales and Scotland have sort of split off and self-rule. And I think in many ways it's a natural thing to think about individual sort of cultural identities.
This flag waving could cost £30 million. Where's it going? The bunting is £5. Small flags, £4. Big ones up to £60. Estimated cost of this lot alone, £150. Careless drivers could pay more. Fines over £2,000 if flags obstruct windows. In some areas, taxis have been banned from carrying them, though Rochdale relented. It seems every community is hoisting up its support.
So you're proud to fly those flags?
Yes, why not? I'm living here. My children like football, that's it. I'm proud of being a Welshman and an Englishman living in England anyhow.
Once you check the labels, these things aren't quite as patriotic as they first look. Most are imported from China. This England flag shirt, right in the crease of the label, says, "Not made in England." The support is homegrown, and England may not be favourites, but many think they're worth a colourful flutter. Chris Choi, ITV News.
And that's the evening news on the ITV News channel. Get your flags out. With the England team just 4 days away from that first match against France, we'll have the latest as the build-up reaches fever pitch.
Trevor will be here at 10:30, but from the two of us and from the ITV newsrooms all around the UK, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
ITV National Weather. Sponsored by Powergen.
Hello, good evening. Now, this was Douglas in the Isle of Man earlier on today. Not wall-to-wall sunshine, but nevertheless fairly bright. Now, with temperatures over the next few days, not quite as hot as yesterday. You can see yesterday in London we had a high of 31 Celsius, but by Thursday in the southeast we're only going to reach 22 Celsius, so cooler and fresher, but certainly above average. So as far as it tonight goes, we'll see one or two quite heavy showers, mainly across the western part, certainly clearer spells further east. And in the south, we've got an area of rain moving from west to east overnight, and it's all associated with these fronts. And if we take a closer look, you can see here for yourself, the rain moving across southern parts. We've got some bright yellow echoes in there as well, indicating one or two quite heavy bursts. But most of that rain should be gone by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Maybe some still lingering, some cloud and some light rain down there in the southeast. Elsewhere through the day, one or two quite heavy, thundery showers developing across parts of Scotland and also Northern Ireland. In between there, some sunshine. For most places, it should be fine, largely dry too. Temperatures about what they should be for this time of year. So we're looking at highs tomorrow, top of the table, around 22 Celsius. So looking ahead then over the next few days, will come Friday. For much of England and Wales, fine, pleasant, dry and bright. Although a little bit more in the way of cloud, light rain up across at the far northwest of Scotland. And if we trek towards the weekend, England and Wales, fine, bright, certainly dry, but by Sunday we could see a little bit more in the way of rain reaching into the far northwest of Scotland. Enjoy your evening. I'll see you later.
Positive energy from Powergen.